Hey friend, it's me Vasco with a quick announcement. We at the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast are organizing this year's Scrum Master Summit. For tickets and details on the summit, check out the URL bit.ly/SM Summit 22. All one word, SMSUMMIT 22. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Julie Wyman. Hey, Julie, welcome back.
Happy Friday.
Indeed. Happy Friday, everybody. And because it's Friday, we're kind of relaxing, almost getting into the mood of the weekend. We want to talk about something fun, not always easy, but definitely fun, which is our interaction and partnership with the product owner. So to get us started, so that we get our juices flowing and start to see the patterns emerging, share with us, Julie, what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you witnessed in your career.
But I think when I think of number one anti-pattern, it generally is the unempowered product owner. So you've been assigned a product owner, they are there, but they are not empowered with really sufficient decision making. And that is definitely something that I've experienced relatively recently. And in this case, the impact was huge because it was actually part of this larger program that I was supporting. So it meant that there were multiple product owners who were influenced by the same anti-pattern. So it was a serious challenge because it really meant that there were delays and bottlenecks to decision making. So theoretically, it was understood that product owners should be empowered, that everything really works better when they are, but making that a reality proved difficult for a very long period of time and to a much greater degree than we had anticipated. Definitely thought we're like, okay, this is common. We might be able to work through it, but there were a lot of trust issues. And so it resulted in multiple layers above the product owner wanting to provide extra oversight and sign off. And all of those extra layers slowed work down, getting to the team. So the funnel of work and priorities to the team, and then getting approval for deployment. So the funnel out. And so it just really, really, really was slowing things down. And we tried, some lower lift things initially. We tried to gradually shift more responsibility over time to build trust, to say, hey, we have all these feedback loops built in. You don't have to be so concerned. We have quality checks built in. We have a definition of done. So what you're getting. None of that really moved the needle. And ultimately what ended up changing things.
Why do you think that was? Because, you just gave the listeners a list of tools that enable decision-making, right? Like the definition of done being one example. But why weren't the POs picking up on that?
So yeah, it wasn't the product owners. It was the leadership above that there was just not enough foundation of trust. And I think it was this feeling of, accountability that, my neck's on the line, so I need to check everything. And it's just that overall feeling didn't allow leaning in to the people who had been put in those positions to do that work for reasons of, expertise, but it just wasn't enough.
One of the things that I very often experience when we get to this kind of anti-pattern is that then a lot of delays, bottlenecks, and problems emerge down the line, right? Like a very simple thing. I was just talking to a colleague who's now dealing with this is when you have a product owner that even sometimes in direct contact with the customer will come into the team and say, hey, stop everything. We have this bug. It's urgent. We must fix it. And they don't even provide information, what kind of environment, what were the other running products that were in the same system, blah, 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 blah. They don't give all of that, but they stop the team from progressing because they want the bug fixed. And actually what they are showing is not a power to decide, it's the power not to decide, because they are being held hostage, one could say, by the customer relationship as well, right? So one aspect is, managers sometimes want to check everything, as you said, but sometimes the POs don't give themselves the ability to make those decisions because they feel that they are hostage to the expectations that others have put on them, right? Like follow exactly what the customer says, as an example.
Yeah. In this case, it was more, I think it had gotten to, it might have been that a little bit early on. It had definitely progressed to a point where product owners were clawing and saying just let us do it. And they were being held back from leadership. But ultimately what ended up changing things in a meaningful way was we just measured the impact. We actually started capturing like extreme in a somewhat onerous and manual way for a short period of time, but very detailed metrics about the impact that these delays were having, like how long the individual process steps were taking. And once we were actually, I mean, everyone was like, oh, it takes too long, but no one actually had the numbers. So once we actually had the numbers and we could prove that it didn't scale and that, they had this goal of, we need the program to scale. Okay, well, what you're doing doesn't align with your goal, and here are the numbers to prove it. That is actually what finally moved the needle to opening up some more decision-making at the lower levels. And then once it happened, nothing drastically bad happened. And we were also able to more clearly define the roles and responsibilities at each level. And one thing that we tried to do with that is outline all of their responsibilities for these higher level stakeholders so that it wasn't just like we're taking away these things that you've been doing and giving them to the product owner. Instead, we're saying like, you have a slightly different role. Also important. Your role is this.
Are also busy, right? And also with lots of stuff.
Yeah. And it's important. It's at this other level. Like you have a higher level role. It's very important, but you need to do it at this phase. You don't need to be involved at this granular phase down here. So it was making sure that it was clarified and documented and, shown to be valuable and where it fit in the process, but not overlapping.
This is very often an undervalued and underappreciated role of the Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, which is really to convey up. We call it coaching up, right? Like convey upwards in the organizational hierarchy that there's a lot of expectations put on leadership and put on higher levels of management that are very often not being fulfilled because they are so, I would say, kind of immersed in the day-to-day decision-making.
Absolutely.
All right. So now we turn to the opposite, the mirror image of this. Julie, share with us, what was the best product owner you've ever worked with? Describe them for us.
Yeah. So this particular product owner, I actually was able to observe fairly recently, and she displayed two key attributes, I would say. First was domain expertise, personally, and the second, almost maybe more important, availability. So she did have her own experience that she could rely on, but she also supplemented it by relying on a council of subject matter experts because they were really trying to build for a global user base. And so she wanted to make sure that it wasn't just, her own perspective, but they were incorporating multiple perspectives. So she really took on that role of being kind of the go-between that council and the team. But she also in the moment could generally give the team an answer because she had her own domain expertise to rely on. So it wasn't like every time there was a question, she had to go to someone else. It was just when they wanted this global perspective, she had a way to get that. She would engage and send surveys when she wanted initial input, but she also kind of knew what to do with it. She knew when to take it and decide, okay, that's their opinion, but no, this is the direction we want to go with. So she had her own point of view, which is something that I think is really important. But she remained the team's POC. She was highly available, engaged, and prepared. She was there when they needed her. She actively participated. She joined in an impact mapping exercise. So she really used that with the team to hone in on the key objectives. And the team led it, but she participated actively to answer their questions. And she had actually created, for the most part, a story map. And so they were using these two to make sure that the impact map and the story map were aligned and both reflected the priorities based on those impacts. So she really understood, what I appreciated is she understood the need for these exercises to be collaborative. I've sometimes seen that even if a product owner is maybe more agilely inclined and they write stories or they'll create a story map, then they sort of hand it off and they're like, look, I created this for you. Here it is. But she actually understood that it wasn't just an artifact, that there was value in the team going over it together. And so she spent multiple days going over it in detail and having a back and forth and making sure that it made sense to the team, not just from a business and priority standpoint, but from an implementation perspective as well.
I think that's a great way to describe engaged, right? It's not just engaged as participating in the meeting, it's engaged as understanding that the PO and the team are working together, and being engaged may mean many different things at different points in time.
Yeah, she was really good at understanding the dynamic of how they would work back and forth. She was way more comfortable than most product owners I've seen with the idea of planning in relatively shorter time horizons. They anticipated that this would be, a 6-month plus project, but she didn't expect that they were going to, detail the whole time frame up front. She understood that they would uncover some information along the way. She was really supportive of the team taking on some early proof of concept type work to uncover technical risks and to validate some assumptions. And I thought that was really great because it kind of showed that she didn't expect everyone to just know everything up front, that she understood that, the team can tell you what they think, but they're also going to have to try some things. And she was very open to that. So I thought it showed that it was really a partnership kind of in trying to get to the success that they were both looking for.
Absolutely. A great story. Julie, unfortunately, we're getting close to the end, but before we do go, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
I don't have a ton of social media presence. I don't tweet, but LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. And I'm always posting conferences that I'm participating at. And I'm always happy to make new connections on LinkedIn under Julie Wyman.
Absolutely. And what a bunch of lovely stories you've shared with us and so many insights that we can take away. So thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey friends, it's Vasco again, now with a bit longer announcement. I'm part of the team that is behind the Global Scrum Master Summit, the conference dedicated to the Scrum Master role. If you're a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master Summit is the place to learn, to share, and of course to meet new friends. We will have lots of live sessions where you can meet and network with other Scrum Masters from the whole globe. So make sure you check it at bit.ly/SM Summit 22. We have several amazing keynotes and 7 tracks that feature people like you and of course thought leaders sharing their insights, their knowledge, and helping you become an awesome Scrum Master. You can check out all of the details of the summit, including the keynotes announced, the track chairs, and much more at bit.ly/SM Summit 22. That's all one word. That's bit.ly/SM SUMMIT and the numeral 22. I'll see you on the conference floor.